Uh, this is the first part of my lecture, and I'll be speaking briefly on the history of medieval Bengal, especially which is related to your syllabus. The history of Bengal is intertwined with the history of the border Indian subcontinent and the surrounding regions of South Asia and Southeast Asia. The Muslim conquests of the Indian subcontinent absorbed Bengal into the medieval Indian Persianate world. Between 1204 to 1352 AD, Bengal was a province of Delhi Sultanate. This era saw the introduction of new monetary policies which was introduced by the Sultanate rulers. And we also see there was the beginning of independent Bengal Sultanate, which was formed in 1352 and ruled, and this independent Bengal rule basically lasted for about 2 centuries. And during this period of independent rule, it was basically Sufism that had huge impact on the Bengali language, and there was also introduction of Indo-Persian culture. We also have examples when in this period the Sultan exerted a huge influence on Arkan regions of Southeast Asia as well as Buddhist kings, and there are also examples in the chronicles, Bursan chronicles, where we find the example of Ming China. The Bengal Sultanate was notable for its Hindu aristocracy, which is very important. And the example is basically the rise of Raja Ganesha and his son Jalaluddin Muhammad Shah, who was also called as the usurper because it was he who dethroned his father and occupied the throne. There are many examples where Hindus served in the royal administration as prime ministers and poet, and under the patronage of sultans like Alauddin Hussain Shah, Bengali literature began replacing the strong influence of the Sanskrit in the region. What happens, earlier the Sanskrit had a huge influence in this particular region, but with the intermingling of the Indo-Persian culture, Sanskrit was gradually replaced with we can say the local Bengali language. Hindu principalities, which is very important to mention, were basically the Kuch kingdom, and we have also examples of kingdom of Mallabhum. We have kingdom of Bharsat, kingdom of Tripura, and there are also examples of Hindu rajas such as Pradapatitya and Raja Sitaram Ray. In the late 16th and early 17th century, Isa Khan, a Muslim Rajput chief who led the Bara Bhuiyas, basically Bara Bhuiyas were called as the 12 landlords who had dominated the Bengal Delta, and following the decline of the Sultanate, Bengal came under the supremacy of Mughal Empire. Under the Mughals, the Bengal Suba generated almost 50% of the GDP of the whole empire, of the Mughal Empire, and you cannot believe this amount was approx 12% of the GDP of the whole world. Now these sources, which I'll be later on saying from which sources I have taken these datas, and we have also examples of this region which was globally very dominant in the industries such as textile manufacturing and shipbuilding. And at that time the capital was Dhaka, and the population of the Dhaka exceeded above million people, and the Suba Bengal was in fact more wealthy than the European empires. It's the wealth and the economic developments which are believed to be the reason to have waived the period of proto-industrializations. After the gradual decline of the Mughal Empire, it was led by quasi-independent states such as Nawab of Bengal. Subsequently, there was Maratha expeditions, and finally there was conquest of the British East India Company. This was basically in brief, which I have pointed out, that the brief history of medieval Bengal. However, we generally know, we must be knowing that the Delhi Sultanate starts from 1204 in Bengal, and I would say it lasted till 1352, because the Islamic conquest of Bengal began with the capture of Gauda from the Sena dynasty in 1204, and the army was led by Bakhtiyar Khilji, and it was Bakhtiyar Khilji and his the military technique, which was basically called as Blitzkrieg campaign, which completely destroyed the Sena dynasty in this region. And after the victory, the Delhi Sultanate they maintained a strong vigil on Bengal. Coins were inscribed in gold, and you'd be very surprised. These coins which were inscribed in gold, and there was a Sanskrit inscription and written as Gaudiya Vijaya, which means on the conquest of Gauda, Bengal. Several governors of Bengal at that time tried to break away and tried to create an independent states. And generally what happens, there was also we have examples of Sufis playing very important role in absorbing the local culture, because at that time basically the political condition of the country was as such that these Turks were considered as the foreigners by the local Bengali people, that particular region. However, what I would say, this period from 1204 to 1352 was basically a concrete period of in which the Sultanate rule was established in Bengal, and the period from 1338 till 1352, I would call it as a period of small Sultanate, because it was in the 14th century when this when the governors they tried to break away from the Delhi Sultanate and tried to establish their own independent principality. And it was basically, this realm was led by Fakhruddin Mubarak Shah, and it was the rebellion took place in the area of Sonargaon. And also we have examples when Alauddin Ali Shah in Gaud and Samsuddin Ilyas Shah in Sadgaon, we have where they tried to break away from their any connection from the Delhi. And the Moroccan traveler Ibn Battuta, who had visited Sonargaon at this particular time during the reign of Fakhruddin Mubarak Shah. And we have also Ibn Battuta, who visited the Sufi leader Shah Jalal in Sylhet, also mentions about these particular aspects. Then again, from the period from 1352 to 1576, we have a new beginning in the Bengal Sultanate, especially with the coming of Ilyas Shah. It was Ilyas Shah who tried to unify these small principalities, the sultanates, and he formed an independent single government in the whole of Bengal. And Ilyas Shah proclaimed himself as the Shah of Bangala. His son Sikandar Shah was so powerful that he defeated the Sultan of Delhi and secured the Bengal sovereignty after the Bengal Sultanate and Delhi Sultanate war. There were also many constructions, Islamic constructions, mosques were built during this period, and this dynasty also promoted the Indo-Persian culture. And we have also examples that it was during this Ilyas Shah period, basically the period from 1342. The dynasty of Ilyas Shah stands from 1342 till 1487, when we have examples of diplomatic exchanges. The embassies were sent to China during this period, and I think Emperor Yongle was the ruler of China at this particular time. And also we have got sources which points out that embassies were also sent to Egypt and Africa and some other kingdoms like of Africa, like Herat. Okay. Ilyasa dynasty is basically important for the Bengal Sultanate. When you read the syllabus, it was basically why it is important, because this such a strong rule of Ilyasa was interrupted. It was interrupted by a Hindu ruler, and his name was Raja Ganesha. Raja Ganesha, he defeated Ilyasa and established a Hindu empire amidst this whole concept, whole Indo-Persian concept and whole Islamic conjunction. Ganesha installed his son Jadu to his throne, but Jadu, who was later on called as Jalaluddin Muhammad Shah, though he was born of a Hindu father, later on he adopted Islam because he wanted a legitimacy to prove that yes, I am the legitimate ruler of the Bengal Suba. And this we find that to get this legitimacy, Raja Ganesha, son Jalaluddin Muhammad Shah, he takes up, he becomes Muslim. Then we have also, it's very important to say that Bengal Sultanate territory reached its greatest extent under Alauddin Hussain Shah, the founder of Hussain Shahi dynasty. There was also promotion of many Bengali literature during this period, and it continued till the period of 1538. It was basically Sher Shah which interrupted Hussain Shah's rule, the dynasty, the rule of Hussain Shahi dynasty. I won't call it Hussain Shah rule, Hussain Shah dynasty. This Suri interruption basically recounts the period from 1539 to 1564. Basically in the 16th century, the Mughal Emperor Humayun was forced to take shelter in Persia. As the conqueror, Sher Shah Suri rampaged throughout the continent, and Bengal was brought under the control in this short-lived Suri empire. Then the period from 1564 to 1576 basically called as Karni dynasty, and this an Afghan dynasty. Karni dynasty was basically an Afghan dynasty, was the last royal house of the Bengal Sultanate. The capital of this dynasty was in Sonargaon, and the dynasty also ruled part of Bihar, Orissa in eastern boundary, was formed by the Brahmaputra river. This is the end of the first lecture, and in my second lecture I will be speaking on the Bara Bhunyas. Basically these Bara Bhunyas, they stand between the period of 1576 to 1610. Thank you.